I'm Jim Check. It's October 28th, a couple of days away from Hallows Eve. Not sure what you're going to dress up as. I'm Jim Check, though, with Now Media. With me, Iain Burns, managing editor. He's out there in our nation's capital. Kind of a cloudy, overcast day here in the Okanagan. And out in Ottawa?
Sunny, lovely actually, but pretty chilly, but still very sunny.
Just like our economy, Canadian suffering could get worse. Loonie looks very weak. We are not competing. Did we have a deal on the table? Brookfield signs big U.S. deal. Carney, target of ethics probe. Liberals will not commit to oil. Crime in Canada is up. And Trump making deals in Japan. All that and a lot more on The Really Big Show. We got actually a really big show. Imagine that. That's why we call it The Really Big Show. We're on every morning at 9 a.m. live streaming. You can like and subscribe, do all those things. We're definitely going to share with you more than you're ever going to learn on the government-funded, corrupted media. But here we are here. And we're going to share a lot of really good stories with you today of what's going on in the world. But we're going to kick it off with the economy and just show you what the loonie's doing, because the loonie is basically the stock of Canada. This is what Canada's stock looks like compared to the world. And there's the Canada in the top left there. That's Canada versus the US dollar trending down. Canada versus the euro on the top right trending down. Yeah, so I mean, it's just not a great picture. Where there's a Great Britain on the thing, on the bottom right there.
I mean, even against the pound.
Yeah.
What is going on there? I mean, Swiss franc, that's understandable. USD, whatever. But pound. Come on.
That's the Canadian stock, and the dollar looks weak. It actually looks weak. It's looking for direction. When we did the election coverage, we said that if it was a pro-resource government elected, the dollar would have shot up. The dollar is looking like it wants to go down. And then some economists have said if it goes down, like we could see the mid-60s or even low 60s once it breaks down. And it looks like it's breaking down against all currencies right now. And that's not good, because that will drive inflation, because most things in the world are priced in USD, and a lower currency will actually hurt the consumer. And usually it benefits our exporters, but right now our exports are falling as well, as this trade tensions continue to rock Canada. And here's some comparison. Here's a little bit from this Money Talks here that talks about comparing Canada, where we are now, and where the U.S. is. Let's listen in on this.
When you think about per capita, think about standard of living of yourself or the average individual in Canada. Used to be equal with the United States. Today, after the last 10 years, Canada's per capita GDP is between 28th and 33rd in the world, from third in the world. And the amount of money that we make vis-a-vis an American is just $56,000 in US dollars versus $89,000 for the average person in the US as a whole. If you look at Ontario, which is one of Canada's richest provinces, it is a GDP equal to the poorest state now in the United States, which is Mississippi. But a starker contrast, and this one sort of hit home in looking at this a few months ago. British Columbia's per capita GDP is just $56,000. Just cross the border into Washington State, and the per capita GDP there is double that of BC at $108,000. Yet, if you can believe it. Yet, and this is the kicker, the top marginal personal income tax rate in Washington State is just 37%. And in BC, it's 53%. So we make half as much money as they do, and we're taxed 30% more.
Let that sink in for a while. They make twice as much money just across the border. There's just a line there. And we get taxed 30% more. And I just interviewed Brenda Bailey, the finance minister for BC, and asked those questions. She's living in a different world. She said that BC is very competitive. It's actually, and I asked her about competition. I said there's competition for capital, and British Columbia, and not only BC, Canada's losing out and capital fleeing. And she says that BC is very competitive. I don't know what they're looking at.
I feel like there's non-economic considerations go into that kind of smugness in the average Canadian, and it's usually something to do with school shootings and healthcare, and the fact that you have to pay insurance premiums and you might not have insurance and all the rest of it in the US. In my experience, anyway, that argument is just avoided entirely. It's not engaged with in a sincere way. This it's not an idea. This fact that the American economy has just shot past the Canadian economy, and also the British economy, European economies, Japanese economy. I mean, the Americans they've just left us all behind, really.
Under the Harper government, our dollar was actually higher than the U.S. dollar. It was, I think, $1.10 there for a while. I think in 2008. I'm just going to check it. When was the last time the Canadian dollar was higher than the USD? And I believe it was 2008 or 10. But we used to make more money. We used to be very competitive. We are not competitive. That's the problem. 2012 and 2008. 2008, look at that, pretty good memory. It was $1.10. There you go.
Good times.
Good times.
I mean, it's more than it's so many things that are happening at the same time, really. But it's lack of innovation, lack of investment, productivity gains, demographics. I mention that from time to time. I think most people find that quite boring, but it really does kind of determine how wealthy your country is in many ways. And Canada's demographics are just absolute garbage. One of the worst demographics in the whole world. Just a glut of older people, not enough young people. And you hear a lot of people say it. Carney said it just the other day, I think. Canada's got the most educated workforce in the world, because something like, I think over 60% of the Canadian population has an undergraduate degree. Why you would want that to be the case, I don't know, but why you'd be proud of it, also, I don't know. But things like that, that's a distraction. That doesn't matter. You can't build a sort of roaring economy off, 2/3 of your population having degrees in sociology or whatever it is. It's just a waste of time. And it ignores the central issue, which is that the demographics in this country are trash. And that's why Justin Trudeau tried to invite half of a province or state of India to come and live in Canada, because the Canadian demographics are so bad that he was being told that was the only way to salvage the Canadian economy. The Americans, on the other hand, I mean, their demographics kind of suck as well, but they have higher quality immigrants than we get, and they also have better demographics among the native population as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can pull up all the charts and all the data. Canada and the United States diverged around 2015. Completely diverged, and it's a tale of two nations. That used to be, Canada used to lead. People would say they come to Canada for a lot of different things, even for freedom. Canada used to people would love to wear the Canadian maple leaf when they were abroad. Now Canada seems to be a joke. Economically, we're a joke, and we've done it to ourselves. It's the policies. And we've willfully self-harmed ourselves, and we can't seem to get a deal. We're going to talk about it a little bit later, but we're one of 3 nations that don't have a deal. But guess who got a deal? Guess who got a deal yesterday? Brookfield made a big deal in the United States. Brookfield made a huge deal in the United States, and uranium stocks are up. So Brookfield made a deal to supply nuclear reactors totaling $80 billion to the United States, part of the USA's energy dominance. We have energy. There's Brookfield making deals. Where's Canada making deals? That is absolutely clownish. Mark Carney took Brookfield to the United States as one of his last moves as CEO of Brookfield. Took his investments in the United States, and here's Brookfield signing a big deal in the United States and touting it as the country's plan for energy dominance. Canada used to have that title.
It's fascinating. I would like to know how much Canadian capital is going into that. I imagine quite a bit.
Well, Cameco is also part of this deal, and Cameco is a Saskatchewan company. But look, it's going to the United States. And Brookfield. You know, they talk about Team Canada and how we got to do things for Team Canada. They want you to do Team Canada, but the elites, not so much. Elisa Rate here agrees with you what happened to the trade deal. This is what she got out of it, and what sounds more closer to the truth why the trade deal fell apart, or the Doug Ford is being used as a scapegoat. But let's listen in.
Do you think, Lisa, that, I mean, I don't know how we know for sure, but do you have an instinct as to whether this is about irritants like the ad, like the Stellantis and GM remission changes, or whether it's a negotiating tactic that Trump has been known to use in negotiations before, just kind of like a last-minute exit until he's ready to come back?
I think your last clip from Ambassador Hoekstra told us everything we need to know. There was a deal on the table. The Canadians did not accept it. Mr. Trump did not like that, and he warned Canadians that if you didn't take the deal as presented, you would go back to the end of the line of 94 other countries who are trying to do deals with the United States right now. And he went through with his word. I think the Prime Minister is fortunate that Doug Ford has been seized upon to be the excuse for why Mr. Trump did this, but he didn't cause it at all. What I would like to hear from the Prime Minister is, well, what was in the deal? What was in the deal that you rejected? Why did you reject it? What's our plan going forward? How much is it going to cost us in the short term? How much is it going to cost us in the long term? I can't really fault Premier Eby or Premier Ford for fighting, because there are two really big things not included in that deal: autos and forestry. So where are those? I mean, I was really hoping that that speech last Tuesday was going to lay out some of these things. We've been hearing about the rumor of a deal being imminent for many, many, many days. The Americans were talking about it, and we didn't sign off. Why? I'm sure it's good reasons, but we deserve an explanation.
That's closer to what you were saying. So,
Yeah, but what I was saying, she also said, which is, we don't know. Fundamentally, we don't know. And she obviously, well, I get the impression that she thinks that's a bad idea. That's a bad thing that we don't know. I mean, I don't know about that, maybe. But certainly the truth is we don't know. We don't know what's going on. And at the minute, it's a lot of people just trying to kind of seize the narrative and craft it for themselves, isn't it? And obviously Trump, who's probably the best on the whole planet at doing that, has stamped his narrative on this, which is that it's about this stupid ad that obviously he doesn't care about. Nobody cares about that ad except Doug Ford. But he's won the narrative battle. The truth, on the other hand, who knows? Maybe we'll learn soon. But I do suspect that it's, when it comes out, and this is I'm purely just guessing here, just based on previous behavior of the Liberal Party, but I would assume that when it comes out, it'll be revealed that the deal was rejected because it would have harmed the Liberal Party's electoral prospects. It would have hurt Quebec or something like that.
Dairy management or supply management. We've got a little clip here from
steel or whatever it is. Yeah.
So apparently, I've heard some other clips out there that says they had a deal on steel and aluminum. Autos was definitely not in the deal, because I mean, he's made it very clear that they're going to go after the auto sector. But here's a clip from the U.S. ambassador.
Canada burnt the bridges with America. Donald Trump did not slam the door. Canada slammed that door shut all by itself.
It comes as Statistics Canada numbers show the Canadian economy contracted for the first time in more than a year.
That's good. Trump in Japan, though. Trump is in Japan making deals, and he got Toyota to commit to over $10 billion to build more automobile factories in the United States. And a lot of other deals. He was sitting around in the table there. And I think they said around the table there in Japan, it was like $518 billion that was being committed. Got a lot of even Tim Cook was there from Apple, a whole bunch of people were there. That's the thing, Trump travels with this crew of people to make deals. Like he takes with him, no different than when he went to Saudi Arabia. He took, like the industry leaders of the United States with him, and they make deals. And then he claims to take credit for all these deals.
But there are two ways to look at that. That's a good thing, you could say. But it's also, you could say a bad thing. It's reflective of what America is now, the American governing system, which is an oligarchy. That is just like Exhibit A, really, isn't it? But I suppose you could almost credit Trump for just acknowledging the fact that America was an oligarchy before he became president, and he's just kind of leaning into it, and he's taking all of these magnates with him when he goes around the world and negotiating deals and threatening all kinds of things, like to withdraw the American military support and things like that, use tariffs. He's doing everything that he can to bully the rest of the world on their behalf, on the behalf of the oligarchy. And in a way, you could say, yeah, and that's why he's getting some success, because he just recognizes that, and he's just like, okay, well, if we're an oligarchy, we're going to be the best oligarchy in the world.
Doug Ford claiming he built this big ad. You know, he's claiming all these things. He's actually like a mini Trump, and he's claiming that it's the best ad ever and it had the most impressions ever. But turns out that Brian Lilly found the ad. China ran it a while ago. It's almost an identical ad that China ran. China posted it back in April, and it had already been seen on X about 15 million times. So Doug Ford just ripped
This
off
video as well of Ronald Reagan looking very chic in his green and black plaid shirt there. I mean, I think a lot of politics and history nerds will have seen this as well. It's like the idea that this is outrageous. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of people trying to concoct these like ludicrous explanations for how it was false, or it was fake, fraud, as Donald Trump said. It's literally just Ronald Reagan talking. Like,
no.
Come on.
That
Ronald Reagan was anti-tariff. That would even be a conversation is, I suppose that's credit to Trump, though, isn't it? Trump's powers are so great. He is so magnificently powerful that he can literally bend truth as it stands in front of you. And he can genuinely make people have a conversation about whether Ronald Reagan was in favor of free trade or not. He can make that happen. That is just astonishing power to be able to do that. I almost wonder, like, what could he not do? Could he come out and say that, like, Queen Elizabeth II was an Islamist? And wow. I mean, I suppose he could, and we would now be sat here talking about that, like, well, you know, she wasn't really an Islamist, and then there'd be like 5,000 paragraphs from Trump cultists explaining that actually she was. It's surreal. But I suppose if you want an indication of how powerful that man is, here's one.
Here's Canada's dime store version of Donald Trump right here. And Doug Ford says it himself, that Trump respects strength, and that's why he does what he does. But let's listen to a small clip from Doug here.
Most successful ad in North American history. What would failure look like?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Brian, that we had over 1 billion impressions around the world, and what we did, we generated a conversation that wasn't happening in the U.S. Now, every single local media, every large media, medium-sized media in the U.S. is talking about it. So is every governor, senator, and congressman and woman.
You get the idea. Largest ad ever, 1 billion impressions now. That story, the fishtail.
Greatest ad that ever was.
The fishtail gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it moves along here. And I was going to play more of this, but we're not going to. But this is their finance minister talking about how great the ad was too. But there's no sense in playing it too. And says that, you know. And then
he also said, Ford, one of the more important bits of that clip. He also said that he showed it to Mark Carney's chief of staff. He said Mark Carney was fully aware of this, completely on board with it. That's new information to be on the record, and it completely contradicts what Mark Carney said as well. So it's like, obviously, Doug, if you read between the lines, Doug Ford is not happy with Mark Carney and the way that Mark Carney behaved, and he's telling the whole world that.
He threw him under the bus for sure. And even Trump said that Carney knew about the ad. He's adamant that he knew about the ad. I mean, everybody kind of knows what was going on, but Doug Ford was used as the fodder. And then in this one, he was asked to apologize. He said he's not going to apologize. There's no sense playing that clip either. And Doug Ford again, he's even got the hand motions going in this next. We won't play it either, but he's got the biggest ad ever, right? Mini me. But on the other side of that, David Eby wants to join the fray. He wants to become, you know, the Doug Ford of Western Canada. He said he's going to run his ads here in going after the Americans on softwood lumber. He's also asked for an emergency meeting with the Ottawa ministers.
Yeah, big dumb.
I won't play the clip. There's no point in playing. The one I do want to play is this one here, because I think this one is really important. And this is from an economist at the Warburton professor. And because everybody said the Trump tariffs were going to destroy the U.S. economy, inflation will go through the roof. But listen to this.
The markets are watching this very clearly, this upcoming meeting. I mean, you're talking about the two largest economies in the world, Mohammed. I mean, what's at stake here?
A lot. And I think if you look more broadly, what the U.S. has achieved on tariffs was something that most economists didn't think was going to happen. We thought that there would be massive retaliation against the U.S. There hasn't been. Europe, the UK, a number of Asian countries have all signed framework agreements. The only outstanding ones are India, Canada, and China, and there's clear progress on China. Secondly, we're collecting a lot of tariff revenues. On an annual basis, we're now looking at $300 billion of tariff revenues. Third, the impact on inflation has been limited. So if you look at what people have been worried about, the U.S. has gotten to a fairer trading system without the disadvantages that people thought would materialize. Now, it's early days, so one has to consolidate these gains, but it's a different outcome from where many economists, including me, thought we would be.
Yeah, that is a remark.
So Canada, India, and China, apparently they're going to sign a deal on Thursday. It remains to be seen.
I mean, we said deal. It's not going to be much of a deal, is it really? I mean, you can't mention, and I don't know why you did, you can't mention Canada and China in the same breath. It's not even, it's this completely different sport that. They're going to get some kind of, it'll be very minor stuff, won't it? Whereas the Canada-US deal is an absolute free trade deal. It's there's nothing else like that.
Yeah. Now there's talk, I've heard that the Canada-US deal might happen in the new year. I mean, you never know.
That's what the ambassador said, yeah.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah.
He said not until, because he said he thought it was going to happen before. Well, actually, they thought it was going to be announced on this trip, didn't they, in Asia, where they both are now. That was the chatter. That was what the rumors were. And then now he thinks it won't be till the new year. But you have to bear in mind that these are all partisans. They're all putting across their party's line in this negotiation. It's almost like a battle, or it's like a sports game, and they're kind of huddling. Like you can't treat what they say as factual or honest, because they're trying behind the scenes to win an advantage, aren't they? They're trying to win in this trade fight. But I would just go back here to what this professor said as well about the tariffs. It's kind of, the Americans are going to have a conversation with themselves about that, I think, and the fact that money, it's like it's not like foreigners' money. It's Americans' money. I mean, it's a tax. A tariff is a tax. This is like the most basic stuff I know everyone's already heard a million times. But they really need to have a chat about that. Are they happy about that? Are they happy that they're paying this extra little tax that goes into the government's coffers? I'm sure a lot of people who vote for the Democratic Party, for example, will be very upset about that, because that money is then, can then be spent by Trump and the Republican Party, can't it?
I think one of the points you are missing on that, though, has forced a lot of manufacturing back to the United States, which means higher paying jobs for many Americans. And I think that's the other point that is being made, because I listen to the deals all day long, and it's like here's Toyota committing to plants, Ford moving plants. You know what I mean? Like there is plants. Meta, like Apple has barely invested in the United States for a long time. They're committing $500 billion into the United States. So those are good paying manufacturing jobs that are coming back to the United States. And the tariff thing it's actually worked, because I mean, they have the political and military might to do these things. We don't have that much luxury. And in Canada, any serious financial person or economist would have to recognize that the United States plays a big role in Canada's future and in our success. Look, we can't ignore it. We're next door. You talked about it yesterday, about shipping stuff brings in a whole bunch of other risks, the high seas, like piracy, all kinds of different things that, and now they're talking about a shipping tax, all these things. And all the while that we posture and we act sanctimonious, here it is. The real truth is Canadians are lining up at the food bank. And let's listen into Melissa Landsman here talking about that.
Daily Bread Food Bank and the North York Food Bank in Toronto just released their annual report. It's called Who's Hungry? And it seems like the answer to that question is nearly everyone. 2.2 million visits in a single month. It took decades to hit 1 million and only half a decade under these Liberals to double it to more than 2 million. They found that 82% of households report they didn't have enough food to eat in this year. The majority said it was because of the cost of living. Every dollar that the government spends simply drives up food prices. It's over 4 million visits in Toronto. How many more people do they want visiting next year?
Yeah, way to go,
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, this government has taken and continues to take real action that supports the people of Canada. We have instituted the National Food Program. We have instituted the Canadian Dental Care Program. We have instituted a number of things that help Canadians.
That's good. Yeah,
I'm just laughing so much at the comments. Iain Burns, the socialist. How stupid are you? Please take an IQ test. How stupid are you if you think that I'm a socialist? Dear God, God help you, you
gotta
fool.
watch a little bit. You got to watch a little bit more of what Iain has to say before you make some conclusion. You just watch for a bit. I knew you were going to... Anyway, the problem with the Liberals, though, is that they keep putting in bills and that actually cripple our economy so that we need food programs. We need dental programs. We should be driving prosperity. Why don't they talk about an oil pipeline? Why don't they talk about an oil pipeline? Why don't they just commit to an oil pipeline? Carney says he's focused on rebuilding that relationship with China. There's talk out there that's saying that he's going to sign a deal with China. It sounds like, he might do the EV deal and take the tariffs off the Chinese EVs, which would be just basically a knife into the rest of the auto sector here in Canada, the American ones anyway. And for the canola deal. I mean, I pitched that plan. I put it on my LinkedIn too. Say that you're going to do all the EV planning or EV building here for the American automakers. Like, come up with a plan that's actually going to work. But
I mean, it would also be, in a roundabout way, good news for Canadian consumers because BYD, if that does happen, and they take off the tariffs on Chinese EVs, they're just going to flood the Canadian market, aren't they? It's just going to completely swamp it.
But on the other side of that, though, the tariffs are relatively new, and there was no Chinese automakers here in Canada. Tesla, though, the price of Teslas went up dramatically because most of the Teslas sold in Canada come from China, from the Gigafactory there. So they'll be coming as well. So right now, the only ones that are cheaper or coming from that they're really selling is the Model Y, which is coming out of the Gigafactory in Berlin. So BYD, still Tesla leads in sales in China as well. But EVs, they do make a ton of EVs. And Britain has a ton of Chinese EVs now. And so does Europe. They're selling Chinese EVs. Australia has them there too. So, yeah. And then Carney's also in Singapore focused on attracting investment, but no deals. Like no deals. They talked about, signing a deal and looking at signing a deal. But he's in Singapore there and he's meetings lined up with the head of state. According to his office, seek to encourage more investment in the likes of critical minerals, AI and green technology. Oil and gas, man. That's what we have. Why no oil?
Well, this professor here who makes an interesting comment saying that Canada needs Southeast Asia way more than Southeast Asia needs Canada. In that article, it's a Canadian Press article, she also talks about how in Southeast Asia, apparently, they're really concerned about climate change and they want to hear from Canada, like what they're going to do about climate change. And I mean, she's the expert. She is literally a professor of Southeast Asian studies or something like that, but I have not I've not seen evidence of that myself, that that's their, like, one of their priorities, and that they're going to do business with a country based on whether or not they have like a big plan for climate change. I haven't really seen a lot of that, but maybe that's going on in the back rooms. I don't know.
China obviously loves to talk about climate change. They took $109 million from Canada just recently for climate change. Remember that? We did that story just a while back. $109 million so that we could help them with climate change. They must be laughing their heads off.
And gender equality, though. Don't forget that.
And then here's Mark Carney on China. Don't forget, when he was running for election, he said, China is the biggest threat to Canada. And here, let's listen to this now.
Steve Chase, Globe and Mail. I wanted to ask you about where the relationship with China could go.
This is our second largest trading partner. This is the second largest economy in the world. This is one of the most influential actors in terms of the global system, such as it is. There are issues of, as people well know, in agriculture, for fishery goods. There's issues in manufacturing and others, and we will explore what we can build on. Relationships rebuild over time when they have been when they have changed for the worse.
Is a free trade agreement with China out of the question? And if you could, would you drop EV tariffs against?
I look forward to the discussions with President Xi, and they're about much broader set of issues than trade, and we'll be in better position to start answering questions like that as the relationship evolves and deepens.
Be interesting to see who comes away with the deal. Trump meeting with President Xi as well. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, Canada's only really interesting from a Chinese perspective insofar as it can be used to upset the United States, and it can be used to sort of, freak them out in some way or other. So that's what it'll all be about. In one way or another, it's going to be about the US, whether we get a deal or not.
And then the Prime Minister now a target of an ethics probe. The Commons today will vote on a surprise opposition motion targeting Prime Minister Mark Carney's stock holdings. We just talked about that Brookfield deal. Well, Brookfield just signed a big deal in the United States. And that's Conservative MP Michael Barrett asked the House to launch an unprecedented ethics investigation into questioning Carney's chief of staff and former associates at Brookfield Asset Management, also trades under the stock symbol BAM. And then, they asked the question, should the Prime Minister have investments in tax havens? And also, Brookfield Asset Management, many times accused of being Canada's largest tax dodger. And if it paid its fair share, it says it would owe more than $6.5 billion to Canadians. But hey, why make them pay when we can line Canadians up at the food bank? And then you can brag about how you have a food program at the school instead of having corporations tax dodge. Anyway.
It's a lot of money. I mean, just think of how many gender equality workshops you could put on in Beijing for that amount of money.
Yeah, and of course they're pushing back. The Liberals are pushing back, saying, how dare you call into question? And then, so we'll see if this goes through. There's an old proverb that says, a wicked man flees when no one is pursuing him, but the righteous are bold as a lion. If you've done nothing wrong, what's the reason for holding up the motion? If there's nothing to hide, why are you running? Let's just deal with it. Well, I mean, why don't we release all the documents from the past? Even Stephen Guilbeault's, that green scheme there, we still haven't seen those documents. About $250 million that was allegedly funneled into one of his companies. Why can't we see those documents?
It's not in the interests of the Liberal Party of Canada. And the interests of the Liberal Party of Canada are the interests of Canada.
And then here's Sam Cooper. He's been doing a lot of investigations, and he actually, one of his investigations drove one of those Liberal MPs out of office. Let's listen to just a bit of his, he was in this conflict of interest committee hearing. This is Sam Cooper, a journalist here in British Columbia. If the wrong link, we don't have it? I guess we don't have it, but yeah, you can look for it here. And he's been doing a lot of work, especially on the ferries and all kinds of stuff. We'll see if we can find that link, though, right? And he said, Cooper mentioned Prime Minister by name, Brookfield Asset Management under Carney's chairmanship till last January 16th held very substantial China-based real estate investments. There you go, Brookfield Asset Management, a big player in China. And they also got a big loan from China, you remember that? The real estate market in China has plummeted. At some point, Brookfield needed to secure some, let's call it a sort of a re-injection capital, and it emerged that the Bank of China was involved in bridging capital. Mr. Carney traveled to China to meet with the senior Communist Party officials around the timing of the Bank of China assisting Brookfield with their real estate investments. There is a lot of connections between Brookfield and China for sure. And then Liberal MP Han Dong abruptly resigned from the government caucus in 2023 after Cooper disclosed the MP's frequent contacts with the Chinese consulate in Toronto. The Liberal Party subsequently dropped Dong as a 2025 election nominee. Cooper yesterday testified the conflict of interest should be strengthened. Canada's democracy demands that legislation is broadened. Did you find that clip at all? Let's see if we can play a little bit of it.
Brookfield maintained over $3 billion in politically sensitive investments connected to China and its state-linked real estate and energy companies. Can you explain how Prime Minister Carney's role in Brookfield's ties to the regime in China?
Sure, I'll go off memory of my own reporting. Thinking of that story, which I wrote in the lead up to the federal election, I researched into Brookfield's investments in China. And on the real estate file, I noted that after 2015, Brookfield had made very substantial China-based real estate investments. And due to my knowledge of Beijing's United Front networks, I noted that one of the key Hong Kong investors connected to the projects in which Brookfield was investing was part of China's political consultative conference. That was important to me because the Central Intelligence Agency notes that people on that high-level Chinese communist entity are involved, the CIA says, in Beijing's sort of global United Front networks. That's how the Chinese Communist Party brings influential people together. So I noted in my reporting that for Brookfield to get access to that same type of investment project on a major real estate deal in China, together with a very elite Hong Kong real estate tycoon, certainly in my learned opinion, would take a special kind of access to get that kind of deal. So then tracking forward through when Prime Minister Carney joins Brookfield, in the surrounding years, I noted that the real estate market in China had plummeted. At some point, Brookfield needed to secure some, let's call it sort of a re-injection of capital. And it turned out that it emerged that the Bank of China, as others have reported, was involved in bridging some capital to reinfuse that deal in China's troubled real estate market. So stepping back from that, I noted that people in Mr. Carney's position in Brookfield, Mr. Carney also traveling to China to meet with senior Communist Party officials around the timing of the Bank of China, assisting Brookfield with their real estate investment. That would certainly, in my mind, raise, the questions around access and influence.
That's good. That's good. So, I mean, I don't know if this motion will get through and if they'll actually have a hearing on it. But Sam Cooper's also outlined a lot of the stuff on the BC Ferries deal as well, linking Mark Carney to the management of the Canadian Infrastructure Bank, former McKinsey co-people, and then they were linked all through, all had worked before together. So that has never been fleshed out as well. Like what happened in that Canada infrastructure loan, that $1 billion of that was Canadian infrastructure money, tax dollars that went to fund the building of ferries in China.
Yeah. which was supported by, talking about socialists, the supposed socialist leader of British Columbia, or the Socialist Party anyway, in theory, he was in favor of that, which doesn't really make very much sense. But I found the liberal question of this journalist here, Sam Cooper, one of the Liberal MPs asked a question: without transparency about who these individuals are or their motivation, how can Canadians place confidence in your conclusion or your ability to separate fact from politics? That's because he used anonymous sources. Do you think that this person applies that logic consistently in public life? What would you guess?
Pipelines, oil pipelines. Tim Hodgson again asked about a pipeline. The answer, as usual, no, go back. Next one. No, that one is in the wrong place. Tim Hodgson one. This one right there. Dismissing a pipeline, there you go. As a hypothetical, why can't they say the words oil pipeline? Why can't they say the words oil pipeline?
Because it's hypothetical.
Absolutely lunacy. And then this here, providing Alberta and oil to Eastern Canadian customers at $50 billion to Canada's economy annually. You know, they talk about buy Canadian, but not when it comes to oil. Why this anti-oil sentiment here in Canada? Nope. We're having some trouble with our slides there. No backup there. But some stuff got moved around, I guess. There you go. Anyway. And all that in the last 10 years, we've sacrificed Canada's economy at the altar of the climate religion. And we're not even on track to meet the 2030 climate targets from a report.
Not that it would even matter. Not that it would matter even if we did, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I've said so many times, climate change is global. It's not about Canadian climate change, Brazilian climate change, Kazakhstani climate change. It's not like that. It's all or nothing. It's everyone or nobody. So it doesn't matter. And in the case of Canada, it really doesn't matter. I mean, the only country that might maybe matter by itself is China. And as we know, they prioritize the wealth of their country and the wealth of their citizens over the global temperature.
Well, since 2014, the 4 provinces in Ottawa have spent $158 billion to encourage a low-carbon economy. And that's Ottawa combined with Ontario, BC, Alberta, and Quebec. $144 billion, 158 adjusted for inflation to support a low-carbon economy.
It's a lot of money.
And where did the money go?
We hear all the time about subsidies for the oil industry, don't we? You know, oh, those damn subsidies going to big oil. It's like this is a pretty large pile of cash, isn't it?
And your friend there in the UK still pushing climate change, what they've done to that economy there in the UK, and he's pushing digital IDs. But here's Keir Starmer on why the illegal immigrants are in the UK. And of course, the answer is climate change.
No.
Let's play the clip. Let's play the clip.
I think we need to look at every aspect of illegal migration, upstream, looking at the causes, which of course are often poverty, climate change, persecution. Look at the causes.
The most popular guy in England right now, isn't he?
I'm like, as every day passes, I get more and more worried about the country, really, and the fact that he's hanging on because he is extraordinarily unpopular. Like everybody despises that man, from the far left, far right, in the middle. Everyone despises him and despises his government. It's quite worrying, actually, how ubiquitous it is.
I'll volunteer, pay my own fare if the Liberal government will allow me to go track where the checks were written for all these climate things, like to, what was the other one just recently, to Vietnam for climate-friendly seeds and gender equality seeds. If I can go there and actually see who cashed the check and who put it somewhere. The $109 million to China as well. Who cashed the check on the other end and where did it end up? because you can't track these things.
Yeah.
And that's why they love it, right? You just dole the money out. Where does it go? Into a vacuum? I'll tell you where the vacuum is.
It's one way of putting it, yeah. But I would say, like, just to go back to this idea that climate change is causing immigration. I mean, there's some truth to that in certain parts of Africa where there's been like really, but like particularly what they call the Sahel, and it's dried out a lot lately, and there are lots of people trying to get away from that. But most of those people, as has been the case throughout most of history, they go a very short distance. The fact that Britain is having these people come on little dinghies across the English Channel, that's the fault of him and people like him, the British government. I mean, that's not something as obscure as drought in northern Africa. It's a cop out, really. It's an attempt to blame something else for your own failures.
And we've talked about this time and time again. Like Melanie Joly stands up there and says we need to save the auto sector. Doug Ford screams about saving the auto sector. And Chrystia Freeland was screaming about it when she was transportation minister. And they ignore the fact that the auto sector won the EV mandate killed. The American automakers and the Japanese automakers don't make profitable EVs. All they did after much screaming, they paused it. And again, if you're in the boardrooms and you're deciding where to build new factories and that, why would you build them in Canada with this EV mandate hanging over your head? And that tax, I think, is like a 20% penalty for building more gas cars once you're over your quota. And here it is. They lay it out, just simple. And this has been simple so many times. Repeal the electric vehicle mandate. And that's from Brian Kingston, the CEO of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturing Association. It could be done today, and it would have an immediate benefit to the automotive industry. Why don't they do it? Why don't they do it?
He says, the guy here from that association, this is an inexplicable situation. I mean, I just want to, maybe I'll send him a quick note. Have a look at the Liberal Party caucus. That's it. That's all you need to do. There was a story in the CBC citing anonymous sources that I'm sure that Liberal MP disbelieved. That was a couple of months ago, saying that the Liberal caucus are like on the edge of their seats. Or the green ones, the climate change ones within the caucus are like just about to freak out. They're like on the verge of snapping.
How can we
That's why this is in place, though.
How can we get this? We're not losing all these jobs to the U.S. and losing all this money to the U.S. because of Donald Trump. We're losing it because we can't compete. We don't compete. Lower taxation, lower regulation, fast-tracking permits. He was talking, I think, yesterday how we fast-tracked a natural gas thing that would take typically 4 or 5 years. He did it in a day. And here's your answer again. We can't compete. And this is again from Kingston here. Brian Kingston, the CEO of the Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association. It is a direct challenge to our competitiveness as an auto manufacturing jurisdiction because it levies punitive costs on companies that do not achieve these arbitrary sales targets. Under this regulation, vehicles manufactured here in Canada today are being phased out by the government. This is an inexplicable situation. It's right there. It's absolutely right there. We've been saying it for, how can we pick out? CBC surely doesn't do these stories, do they? They won't give up on this, and they're basically killing the automobile sector. And why Doug Ford knows this. You can guarantee Doug Ford knows this. I'm sure they've contacted Doug and told him. Why doesn't Doug Ford talk about it? He doesn't. He talks about, he makes straw man's Trump as the bad guy. The Canadian, it says the mandate was inflationary. If companies do not hit the mandate targets, they have two options. One is to purchase credits from other companies like Tesla, so they could buy Tesla credits. Our estimate is, and this is what they're going to do with this climate drift coming up to carbon capture. It's all hidden taxation. And it says our estimate, it will cost the industry $3.6 billion. Or they can pull vehicles from the market. 700 to 900,000 new vehicle sales pulled from the Canadian market every single year. This is going to cost the Canadian consumer when they go to buy a car. This stubbornness and this ideology that the Liberals continue to hang on to this EV mandate, and I'm a big proponent of EVs. I drive one, been driving a Tesla for over 2 years. I think EVs are the best in the world. But doing this to a nation and people's jobs is just absolutely ridiculous.
Iain, I go back to politics. I just think, like I would chat with Jonathan Kay to reference that again. He went into this a bit from a different perspective. Obviously, he's based in Toronto, so he's kind of East v West. But it's not just about British Columbia being dysfunctional. That's what he focused a lot on. It's just the whole of Canadian domestic politics is dysfunctional. Like, it just simply does not work. And this is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, but this is one manifestation of that dysfunction, where something that's obvious to everybody, including, I'm sure, Mark Carney and all of his team, Tim Hodgson and all the rest of the big boys sat around the table, they all know this is obvious, but they continue with this, what Kingston here calls inexplicable situation, because they must govern. They must have a secure foundation beneath them so that they can be in Ottawa and they can govern. And that means appeasing certain irrational people and irrational groups. And that includes the extremists within the Liberal Party who genuinely think that this mandate is going to somehow contribute to saving the world.
So here's the thing, and I'm going to give you a couple examples. We're here to save the auto sector. We'll do whatever it takes, says Melanie Jo. We're here to save the auto sector. The auto sector says, remove the EV mandate. We're here to save the auto sector. We'll do whatever it takes. Remove the EV mandate. Can't hear that, right? That's the thing that's killing the auto sector, the EV mandate. Same thing with media. Media dying in Canada. Remove Bill C-18. No, give more money to CBC. That's what Carney says. Remove Bill C-18. It's killing media in Canada. 100 outlets have failed already since 2 years of it. They say it's Bill C-18 is helping media. It's dying. Media's dying. Pull up Chorus's stock chart. That's global news. Pull it up. Have a look. See how it's helping. Pull up Glacier's stock chart. I don't know. You can pull up them all. If anything is publicly trading, it's right there in black and white. But they say, we've asked many times if we will repeal Bill C-18. Stephen Guilbeault said, it's immoral to even talk about it. They make no sense. They make no sense. The EV mandate is killing the auto sector that they will do everything to save. Just remove the EV mandate. No.
And why did he say that? Why did Guilbeault say that in the Commons about it being immoral? He said, because you were supporting these evil, by opposing C-18, you are supporting these evil American companies like Facebook. And that's what's immoral. While Stephen Guilbeault supports evil American companies like Facebook by giving them money to advertise himself on Facebook, or while his party gives several $1 million to Facebook to advertise. The whole thing is, I just don't get it with Stephen Guilbeault and people like him and Mark Miller. They're so certain of themselves, aren't they? It's almost like looking at Thomas More or something, some sort of like somebody from the Renaissance or medieval period, some like absolute, like humorless, grave religious extremist, and trying to like reason with them and trying to expose their hypocrisy, trying to expose the flaws in their argument. What's the point? They're just going to stand there like a statue and call you immoral. I'm
going to take this one for you in your defense. So they asked, why is Iain here in Canada then, just trying to save us? And I would say, I will say, as bad as it is in Canada, England's worse, and it's just ahead of us by a few years. We're heading down the same path. We're heading down the same path. When Iain was living in England, he had to choose what couple hours he could have heat on in his home.
That's couple hours, mate. Don't get ahead of yourself. A couple of hours was out of my budget. Maybe an hour.
But that's where we're heading. We have Liberal MPs standing up in the House of Commons bragging about how we have kids on food programs at school. And yet they won't do an oil pipeline that could guarantee prosperity for Canadians. They have an EV mandate. They say they're trying to save the auto sector. They won't remove it. That's killing the auto sector. They have Bill C-18. They say they need to save media in Canada. Killing media. Meanwhile, they fill the trough at the CBC and the executives take raises. It's a literal clown show. Absolute clown show. Anyway. Here's another from Holly owns the Blacklocks. Immigration Minister Lena Diab yesterday was accused of cheapening Canadian citizenship with a bill to grant Canadian status to grandchildren of citizens abroad. Conservative and Bloc Quebec MPs have attempted to amend the bill by prompting a 2023 court ruling here. And she says that nor would it allow people who are strangers to pass on Canadian citizenship in perpetuity. The goal is to ensure the children of Canadians with strong connection to our country can access citizenship by descent, regardless of where they were born. I mean, it's just another thing. We talked about this a while back, too, about, they were bringing in all the grandparents and everything, too, that have never paid into healthcare and everything. And then, most Canadians don't even have access to a family doctor. But why not bring in more people that need more healthcare?
I mean, it's interesting that she should say this because she has, she was born in Canada, but then as a baby moved to Lebanon, where her parents are from, and sort of spent a lot of her childhood in Lebanon before coming back to Canada. It's that's relevant, Usually you don't need to bother with the personal life of a minister or something like that, but that's relevant to this. Like, she clearly has a horse in this race because this is something that she has personal experience of, and theoretically, I suppose, could stand to benefit from.
And here it is, the CBC, or the future of television uncertain, says the feds. Yet we continue to pay the CBC $1.55 billion. $1.55 billion. 15%, this is it. Researchers know only 15% of households subscribe solely to traditional TV. I haven't had cable in my house forever. I haven't, I don't have a telephone, I don't have cable. It says, although traditional TV still exists, its long-term future is uncertain because fewer people are watching it. I don't know, like in your comments here, is anybody still subscribing to cable? I think the last time they tried to talk me into cable and said, I said, why would I subscribe to cable when I can get streaming services for a lot less money? And they said, well, you get the news on cable. I said, I don't need any, I'm not paying anybody to lie to me. I get that for free.
And you literally can get it for free. You go on, if you just get like a digital TV or whatever, you can get CBC, CTV and all that. You don't need to, if that's your bag, you don't need to pay for it.
And this is, we did this story a while ago. CBC won't reveal the number of paid subscribers. They say it's, they can't relieve it. Although Netflix and all them others, Crave, all reveal their numbers, but not CBC Gem. They just want you to give them more money, and they don't like transparency.
Yeah. But yeah, I was just going to say, the only people I know that have cable, this is fairly out of date information anyway, a couple of years old, but the only people I've recently known to have it had it purely for sports. That was all. But you can get you can get sports through streaming services now, so they've probably dropped that anyway.
And here's almost half of English-speaking Canadians under 34, about total 42%, subscribe to only subscription-based video. That's obvious, right? And advertising revenue has followed the conventional television audience into migration to streaming platforms. Advertising spent on traditional television has dropped from $3.2 billion in 2015 to $2.9 billion. Digital, how much of that is the government? That's a good question. How much of that is the Canadian government advertising on CBC? That's a good question, isn't it?
And you do see, I actually do watch these channels now and then, and yeah, a lot of it is directly from the federal government.
Imagine that, eh? We should ask that. But we've asked how much they're spending on Meta still, and they say they can't give us that information until when? 2026 now.
Sometime next year, yeah. Mr. Rod here, I have to ask him. I have to engage with Mr. Rod. Talking about CBC rivaling any other global broadcast network. What do you mean by that exactly? What are you talking about? Yeah. I'm being really serious. What are you on about? What are the great successes of CBC? I mean, even CBC News. Do you listen to CBC News, like the radio? Whenever something happens somewhere in the world, like Israel or Asia or something like that, you might not be aware of this because you're not familiar with the BBC in England. But 9 times out of 10, the reporter that comes on the phone or is broadcasting is actually a BBC reporter. And I know them all. I know all their names. I know, I'm very familiar with them. And then they'll say, John Jones, CBC News. They're not from CBC News. They're BBC. The BBC, which I have many complaints about, is actually what you describe as a global broadcasting powerhouse. It really is. And you could ask an average person to name things that the BBC has done. and they would be able to do it, like David Attenborough documentaries and all kinds of things like that, and comedies. What's CBC done? What are you on about? I'm not saying this to kind of like be down on Canada or up on England. It's just an obvious fact. The CBC, like if anything, is an underachiever. It doesn't do anything, despite having a massive budget and a monopoly on basically all journalistic talent in this country.
And many have accused it of just being an arm of the Liberal government. And let's move on to BC News, though.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Healthcare in British Columbia continues to be in crisis. And now we saw that mass resignation in Vernon of 7 psychiatrists. We saw the OBGYNs in Kamloops. And now over 100 OBGYNs from across BC have signed a letter addressed to the health minister and CEO of Interior Health, warning of ongoing concern about maternity care, gynecology services, and women's health in the region. This letter includes 128 signatures and comes almost after 2 weeks after the entire group of 7 quit the Royal Inland Hospital and handed in their resignation. The group of doctors said they hoped their resignation would galvanize IH. We've asked, how many times now have we asked for an interview with the CEO of Interior Health? And this problem with Interior Health goes way back a number of years. When the mayors, I think it was, how many mayors? Okanagan mayors, Thompson Okanagan mayors, 5 or 7 mayors, signed a letter, said that the communications between Interior Health and the communities was almost non-existent. And they asked for something to happen back then. Adrian Dix didn't even let the public know that letter was leaked after, and then the former CEO lost her job. And then they put in an interim and then gave her the job. And here we have again. Where's the communication? How many emails have we sent for asking for an interview? Because this is serious, right? This continues to happen. We've had mass resignations in Kamloops, OBGYN, and then psychiatrists in Vernon, and then pediatrics here in Kelowna. And now we have 128 doctors. And the CEO again is, they're looking into whether they can find time to talk. That's the problem. They will not be held accountable. They refuse to be held accountable. This is a crisis in British Columbia.
You do get the feeling, don't you, that they consider that to be quite an ugly kind of unpleasant thing to do, to go out and speak to the press.
But that's the job.
Even though you're the head of an organization like that, you're the head of an organization that is paid for and exists for the people. I mean, you've got to communicate with them. I mean, it's an obvious responsibility. It's a duty, isn't it? I mean, it's a moral duty and necessity, and yet, where is she?
All 128 doctors who signed the letter said they will not be participating in the IH temporary coverage plans or in the supervision of new hires under current conditions. Instead, the large group of OBGYNs is encouraging IH and the Ministry of Health to drop their reactive approach and instead acknowledge system failures and work with Kamloops OBGYNs to find a sustainable solution to the problem. The first thing
that's a lot of OBGYNs as well. Like what proportion of BC's overall OBGYN population is that? It must be quite a lot.
Yeah, we've asked for how many interviews? I mean, if this one doesn't want to communicate, maybe let's move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, until they decide that they want to communicate. The public is losing trust.
That's it, yeah. And I think with COVID and everything, and lots of other developments in recent years, I feel like maybe a lot of these institutions and the sort of expert class, they got used to just like standing on a box and telling people how it is. Yeah. And then if you asked a question or you expressed any kind of skepticism, then you were just told that you were dangerous or that you were ignorant and that you should shut up in your own interests and in the interests of everybody else. And I think it's on so many different sort of fronts, isn't it? So many different institutions where this has been the case. Justice is another one, the court system. But there's so many. And I feel like we're not in those days anymore. It's not 2020 anymore. It's not even 2021. I don't think you can really expect to get away with this attitude any longer, this sort of hauteur. You've got to get down onto the level of the people, as they would probably phrase it, and speak to them and be accountable to them. Otherwise, your days are numbered. You'll be gone.
And they make good money, too. They make a decent salary. Macklin McCall, MLA here in West Kelowna, Peachland, he put this out here. This is another shooting there in Abbotsford now. Respected community member shot dead in Abbotsford, gunned down on a busy street in broad daylight. And this is close to 3 schools that's happened as well. Absolutely. Gun crimes and that. And I mean, they've been talking about that. Even the FBI and the DEA say there's a large Mexican cartel and Chinese gangs operating out of Vancouver. And we've seen shipping fentanyl to New Zealand. It was the biggest bust they ever did, coming in maple syrup bottles. And yet we continue to deny it, and that's the feds again, right? This is from Brian Lilly. Ottawa police reporting a 63% increase in crime in the last 10 years. But according to the Liberals, crime is not an issue. Neither is their bail policies.
Well, they did finally admit that it's an issue, didn't they? And started to sound a lot like their critics. Started to sound a lot like the Conservative Party. But
yeah,
some have said too little, too late, haven't they?
And David Eby, the Premier, says he shares Bailey McCord family's impatience with the Liberal crime bill. And this is a sad story that played out here in Kelowna. I think it was hours after being released, he allegedly found Bailey and killed her. Her former husband was later charged with second-degree murder. He had been released on a $500 bail hours before her murder, having been convicted of choking a person.
He's not put in a plea yet, has he? I think that's going to happen next month. We don't even know what his defense is going to be, if he's going to have a defense. But I find it interesting that everybody, including Eby's a lawyer. You know, he talks about it often enough. Most people probably know that. But the presumption of innocence, and so Sean Fraser as well. I think he's a lawyer. Presumption of innocence, just like completely in the garbage. They're just like constantly saying, and then this guy, when he murdered this woman, it's like, we haven't had a trial yet. Don't use that language. He's accused of murdering. You know, if like we can get it right, I'm sure they can get it right. Cheeky buggers that they are. But this is very interesting because he said during this press conference that he's going to meet with the family. But the family at the same time had sent a statement to the BC Conservatives where they kind of they're not happy with either the Liberals or the BC NDP. So they're trying again with the attempt to control the narrative. David Eby's trying to get on top of this, he's trying to own this, but the family aren't playing ball. You know, they're really upset with the left wing parties, to put it clearly, the NDP and the Liberals, whereas they're cozying up with the federal Conservatives and the BC Conservatives.
And we've done lots on this Richmond land decision there for the Cowichan tribe. Now Eby's being accused of stirring up unnecessary fears over the Aboriginal title case. And he's been attacked by I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, Quanutsan Nation over comments about the Aboriginal title case in Richmond. The nation, whose members include the Cowichan tribe, said comments made by politicians, including Eby, have been at best misleading and the worst deliberately inflammatory and have stirred up unnecessary fears among landowners. It comes after the BC Supreme Court ruled that Cowichan tribe have title over the Richmond property, prompting Eby to say concerns among landowners were reasonable. This is a landmark decision that is being challenged right now, and the NDP have appealed the decision, and it awarded about 700 acres, I think it's 780 acres of land that included privately held land by individuals. I think there's a Walmart on there, a few other things, and then there's a property.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah, the city of Richmond owns some of the properties as well. And the city of Richmond mayor is the one that raised the alarm as well, because Eby and them were just kind of lurking in the background, not saying much until their hand was forced. I actually interviewed the finance minister, Brenda Bailey, asked her this question as well, uncertainty on capital investment in British Columbia and how this caused concern. And also, I've interviewed Jeff Moist twice now, the Aboriginal lawyer that's worked for the government for like 31 years. And I have an interview coming up with him as well on this. This is an important decision. And they say that the Canadian Supreme Court will not hear this until it is exhausted through the BC Supreme Court. And that could take 5 to 7 years. For right now, those lands in Richmond have a cloud hanging over them. Basically impossible to sell right now because, I mean, who would buy them?
It's just hell for those people. I pity them enormously, and they're gonna learn just how slow and useless the justice system can be, because it's gonna be. I mean, imagine if you were living there and you had plans to move to go and, like, I don't know, live with someone like your kids or something, or your parents in another part of BC or another part of Canada. What are they gonna do? Those people, like, their lives are gonna be on hold for like the best part of a decade now because of this, and yet one of these nations has the goal to come out and attack people who are concerned about it. I mean, it's a very curious approach, really, isn't it?
We're going to move on to our international news here. We've got some good stuff in here.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Donald Trump was in Japan. They're meeting with the new prime minister. Let's listen to a little clip here. He's on the U.S. George Washington aircraft carrier.
I have to say this, the first female prime minister in the history of Japan. Madam Prime Minister, please say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all.
She's going to speak in Japanese there, so. Yeah, I watched quite a bit
We
of
like
that.
a bit of Japanese, though, don't we? As we discussed the other week.
I'm going to Tokyo. I don't think I'm going to get to go on the U.S. George Washington, but I watched quite a bit of the cabinet or the meeting he had there. He took a bunch of, like I said, there was a bunch of investors. Toyota committed a bunch of money. I think they around the room there. This is how Trump does deals. He's just like, we got 20 billion from this guy. What are you going to do? They're just, and then all of a sudden people are just, it's like they're almost like at an auction or something or a fundraiser, and they just start committing. They just feel obligated.
There was that funny clip, wasn't there, where Mark Zuckerberg was chatting to Trump, and he didn't know he was mic'd up, and he was like, I just said like $2 trillion. I don't really. It's like they are being bid up, definitely, by his kind of. He's like an auctioneer, isn't he?
Yeah, he's actually getting deals done. But here's the thing. Love him or hate him. When Donald Trump speaks, he speaks in clean language. Like it's you know what he's saying. He may exaggerate, he may tell stories, but it's common man language. Mark Carney speaks. I have no idea what he's talking about most of the time. I have no idea what he's saying.
I would say Trump, just like one of his predecessors, George W. Bush, he speaks below the level of the average man. He's not even trying to reach the average level, but he does it. What's so interesting about Trump is he does it in such a kind of unique way, and what comes across, and it's so strange to say it about somebody like Trump, but what comes across is authenticity from a man that is kind of fake in so many ways, even like his orange, makeup or whatever it is. And yet he has authenticity, doesn't he? He comes across like a real person and in an authentic way. Contrast that with his recent opponent, Kamala Harris, and you could kind of see why he's popular and she's not.
Well, you can also look, if you listen to Kamala Harris speak, you don't know what the heck she says. And for the life of me, there's only a couple times that I can remember Mark Carney saying something that was clear as mud. And one of those was, will you arrest Benjamin Netanyahu? Yes. But when asked about a pipeline, it's a 5-minute first point, second point, third point, rules-based order, like this, that, and another thing. And you're just like, I don't know. You go to sleep, I guess.
Lots of vocal fry.
And then Anita Anand asked what, we have what the world wants. I don't know, where do they get their talking points? Do they go in a room and just like, here's the talking points. We have what the world wants. And then she hears wind and she adds wind to it. We have what the world wants. Wind. And the media just like, yeah, wind. Okay. Wind it is.
It's bad. It's a bad time for wind as well. Anybody that like is interested at all in macroeconomics and sort of world trade, they know that it's bad time for wind right now. Lots of wind bears out there. Whereas solar, as you know well, there are lots of solar bulls out there. But wind is like having a devastating time. It's such a funny thing for her to have said, really. But I suppose indicative of where we're at, really, the standards of our leaders.
We had this other one, but this is probably get some people wired up too. And then I'm a big believer in this one. Elon Musk may have well saved the free world and freedom of speech when he bought X. I know a lot of people don't. That's not a very popular thought, but RFK shares this as well. And that our freedom of speech here is being curtailed more and more. And I've done many interviews with John Carpay from the Justice Center of Constitutional Freedoms, talking about how the liberals continue to try and suppress freedom of speech. But listen to what RFK has to say about Elon Musk.
I sued the Biden administration, and I won that lawsuit. And what we found through discovery was that 37 hours after President Biden took the oath of office, swearing to uphold the Constitution, he appointed a group in the White House to censor me and other people. But I was the first one censored, and we now have the emails between him and this group and Mark Zuckerberg and other people at Twitter, et cetera, which Elon, made public, and thank God for him. And I don't think we'd have free speech in this country if it wasn't for Elon Musk, because he opened up Twitter and he allowed people to see what was actually happening. And by the way, against the advice of all of his attorneys, he turned all these documents over to a bunch of journalists and said, do what you want with them. That's unheard of.
That's good. You can go watch that full thing if you want. But Elon got himself in a lot of hot water there when he cracked open the veil there into the censorship that was happening on Facebook, the censorship that was happening on YouTube and X, and all the documents revealed all that. They were being pressured by the FBI, the CIA, all those things, and the Biden administration. And the same thing right now is happening in Canada. They continue to attack X. The Liberal government continues to attack X because it's a threat. It's a threat to their narratives.
Yeah. It's hard now, isn't it? Sort of several years after the worst point, I'd say, for free speech in the Western world in recent years, which was, 2021, something like that. It's either 2020 or 2021, I would say. But can you remember, when the Twitter CEO and I think it was Twitter CEO and Twitter's head lawyer or something like that went on Joe Rogan's podcast and just lied again and again and again and again to Joe Rogan, saying oh no, there's no censorship or there's no bias or anything like that. But then what he's referring to there, RFK, when all those documents were released, just completely contradicted that, which we all knew. But we were kind of trapped. We were trapped in this kind of knowledge vacuum, weren't we? And we were just being lied to by these people. We knew that they were lying, and they knew we knew they were lying, to paraphrase Solzhenitsyn. And yeah, it just kind of continued. We were trapped in a vicious circle. And then, I'm inclined to agree with Robert Kennedy there. Elon blew that apart. We were going around in circles, and it was kind of getting worse and worse on internet free speech, at least. And he just blew that up and made it so it was no longer possible. And now you have Zuckerberg and people like that kind of towing the line.
I'm going to share something with people that you're not going to get anywhere else. And it is a watershed moment in our history. And you're probably not going to believe it, but you will. You'll look back. You mark this date on your calendar. Look back. Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas, who's an analyst that covers Tesla very well, he says autonomous cars are solved. That is a watershed moment. It's not happening everywhere right now, but apparently FSD 14 point whatever it is right now is they're going to pull the safety drivers out. And if this is the beginning of autonomous vehicles in the United States. I mean, it'll probably take a while for it to reach Canada. I use full self-drive. I've been using it for about a year. That's supervised, but what they're talking about in the United States is like driverless cars, autonomous. And Morgan Stanley's Adam Jonas has been covering Tesla for quite a while. Tesla's up, substantially in the last few days based on this news. It is a big deal. It'll save millions of lives. It'll save millions of lives a year. Millions of lives.
Should boost productivity as well by quite a bit.
They'll move more traffic. You'll need less roads, all kinds of things. Tony Seba, another really smart guy out of Rethink X, says if everybody drove a Tesla, it would just that alone and ran on just autonomous, on autopilot, it would save over 1 million lives a year because most traffic accidents are driver inattention, right? And safest cars in the world are Teslas. Like, I'm a big proponent of it, but I also believe we need to drop the EV mandates. It's ridiculous. People will buy.
This kind of technology is going to make EV mandates look ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because consumers will naturally flock to this technology the same way that we were talking earlier about sort of Netflix versus cable and stuff like that. The consumer knows best, and they will switch when the time is right. And this technology, like I said, we've said it so many times, safety, productivity, personal freedom.
You've tried it.
It makes your life better and easier in so many ways.
You've used my car, and most people you talk to say they don't even believe it's even happening right now. But this is a watershed moment. This is the moment in time. If this is the truth, Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas says it's solved. And if that's the case, things are going to accelerate at an accelerating pace. And here's the sad thing about the Liberal government's stance on Elon Musk. He's the most important person on this planet right now, a consequential person, and also leading in the leading industries. And somehow we have vilified him in Canada. We should be celebrating him that he's a Canadian, that has Canadian roots. Absolutely crazy. There's just some other notes on. I got a little clip here to play of. So CNBC is what it's actually. I like those guys, especially the morning show. Let's just watch them. They're talking. They're actually interacting with Optimus there, who's handing out jube beans or whatever, gummies or whatever. let's just watch this little clip here.
I'm shocked he's not mobbed out here in Times Square. Hi, how are you, dude? Good to see you, man. Oh, high five, air five. Oh, good. High five. Boom, boom. I'm not allowed to touch, I'm told. But could I have some candy? Could I have candy? Please? Thank you, man. Woo! Thank you very much. By the way, these are gummies. I'm told there's no THC in them. But we are out here with Optimus, and we have the cyber cab. This is going to be like it's actually pretty cool. You guys need to see a side picture of this. Joe, you'll like it better. Andrew, from the side. Okay, they just put the windows down, the doors down, but it actually looks pretty cool, and I have to give a big shout out to the wheels. Those are nice rims. And the windows are really big in front, Joe, so I guess you can't see behind you. I would love to have a mirror, but there is a giant inside screen, so maybe you could.
That's good. You can go find it on X there. She gets a couple more candies from Optimus and asks some questions and that. But again, watershed moment if that's the case and autonomous driving is solved. AI is going to play such a big role. But we do have in Canada, this is the part that blows me, we have Evan Solomon, the, what was he, forced to retire, fired journalist there from CBC for being an art dealer to none other than Mark Carney. And then he ended up working for none other than, what was the name of that place where he worked? Eurasia Group.
Eurasia Group.
Eurasia Group, where Mark Carney's wife works. And guess who else works there? Gerald Butts. Crazy.
Butsy. Somebody here mentions Total Recall, the movie, and the Johnny Cab. It's quite. What's funny about that in Total Recall is the present technology. Like Tesla's technology now is a lot better than that from that movie. And Demolition Man is another one that kind of represented it in an interesting way, I think. But I find that funny that the technologies ended up actually being better now than they anticipated it would be, kind of like long in the future.
Some in the Liberal Party and the Democratic Party in the U.S. were all about bringing, opening the borders up and just letting mass migration because they said we didn't have a big enough workforce. Well, it's going to reverse that because we're going to have massive layoffs. Now what are they going to do? Because this is happening over and over again. Here's Amazon just announcing they're going to lay off another 14,000 because of AI. I think it was Scotiabank laid off. And we're going to see this more and more and more now. And Amazon has already laid off 30,000. And so this is, Amazon has a huge workforce. So we're going to see this.
I mean, they're notoriously ruthless though as well, aren't they, in Amazon?
Yeah.
The way that their work cultures, I've heard people talk about it in a very unpleasant way. So I'm not surprised that they would jump.
If Canada had half a brain, they would say, let's just let Danielle Smith run the show for a little bit. Just everybody else have a seat. Go do something. Because Alberta seeks to use its gas reserve to become an AI superpower. This is the thing. Alberta could be the Saudi Arabia of the Western world. And it's laying out ambitions to build new pipelines running from the Pacific Coast, Ontario and Hudson Bay. And who's in the way? Wab Canoe in Manitoba and David Eby in British Columbia. Standing in the way of prosperity. Canada's the first
political dysfunction, isn't it? Another way to look at it.
Canada's fourth largest oil producer. Alberta, home of the oil sands, accounts for the bulk of the country's hydrocarbon exports. Teck, one of Canada's greatest companies, which is now being bought out, walked away from their Frontier project in Fort Mac after spending $1.5 billion because of Liberal policies. I don't know, but I don't know. I had a couple more things here going, but I will leave you with a joke. We're just going to play this one joke where there's people that got to cancel everything, and this is just that comedy. I think a meme here for you. Like all these people that are canceling anybody that donated to the new big magnificent ballroom, or however you call it, in the big ballroom at the White House there. But the Wall Street Journal actually did a story out that actually came out positively and said that it's time for progress at the White House, and this is a great thing. But let's listen to this lady. She'll take us out for the day and talk about how all these people she has to cancel because they're donating to the White House. He just got more money he got from Carrier at the Japanese thing. I can't remember how much money, but Carrier, the HVAC company, is donating money to the building of this new ballroom. So the taxpayers are not on the hook at all for this ballroom. It's all coming from corporate donations. Let's listen to this, though.
Okay, so we just got the list then of who are the private donors for the White House ballroom. So here's who we have. Amazon. Amazon. So now I have to cancel Amazon because now I can't watch Thursday Night Football or have my Prime orders. Apple. Now I have to get rid of my phone, so I probably won't be making videos very much longer. Let's see. Coinbase, Comcast. Now I have to use an antenna. I have to use an antenna to watch TV. Google.
Anyway, she goes on.
Now I pretty.
Facebook's on that list. There's quite a few people on this list here. But that's this cancel culture. And the same thing goes for everybody that hates Elon Musk, that thinks he's whatever they think he is. Don't forget when you're flying on WestJet and stuff like that, and you want to use the internet, you can't use it, right? Because that's from Elon Musk's Starlink. So, no. No to you.
Or if you want to read a statement from whoever, I don't know, the leader of Brazil or something like that, then you can't go on X, which is where it'll be posted. You're just gonna have to wait for somebody else to report it, and maybe they'll report it accurately.
Even Kamala Harris, when she finally conceded the election, where did she post it first? On X.
Yeah.
On X.
Funny, isn't it?
And according to her, Elon Musk is the devil as well, right? So. So she went straight
Well,
to
she's
the devil.
changed her tune a little bit, hasn't she?
Yeah. Well. Yeah, that's our show. It's 10:30. It's an hour and a half. We're back tomorrow. Tell your friends. Tell everybody. And we look forward to seeing Lightning Rod tomorrow. I don't know what electricity is, though, Lightning Rod. What is electricity? I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, he had a good few runs. Or she. We still don't know. Is it a he? Is it a she? Saying Elon Musk will not build in Canada because of unions, but he will build in Germany, which has some of the most powerful unions in the
That's
world.
absolutely ridiculous. Again, who makes this stuff up? Just absolutely. You know, like they tried
Mr. Rod, he's the one that makes it up.
They tried to unionize the Giga Berlin factory, and the people at Giga Berlin said, "Get out of here! Like this, we have a way better deal than any union can give us." And they actually tried to boycott it. They wouldn't even allow the cars into Sweden and stuff like that. They were boycotting his mail and everything because they wanted to unionize it. And it was the workers at the factory that said, "No thanks, get lost."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's like, you know, he's got sort of branches in all different kinds of economic and political systems, hasn't he? A sort of communist authoritarian state in China. He's also got, obviously, the US, which is kind of strange oligarchy mixed with a bit of capitalism and democracy. Germany. I mean, he's I don't think it's the case that Elon only goes places that suit his, his idea of how a country or an economy should be run. He kind of just goes anywhere, doesn't he? So I think it's very realistic to make the claim that he could have been persuaded to come to Canada. I think that would have been realistic. I don't think so now, though.
100%. The cool thing, is that I was at the Fremont factory, his first factory he bought from, I think it was GM he bought it from. And the cars drive themselves off the line. Pretty wild, eh? Pretty wild. Pretty
Very
wild.
cool.
Actually, like if somebody had half a brain, they would call up all these AI companies and say, "We got the energy," because they're going where the energy is. Microsoft is actually firing up 3 Mile Island. Remember that? That's usually used in the Bart Simpson episodes there. But they're going to fire up 3 Mile Island because they need the energy. Elon Musk says he can double the energy output of any country just with batteries. So there you go. And if anybody's, for my fear for Elon Musk, if he goes crazy, he is Skynet. That'd be the more realistic one. Anyway, that's our show for today. We're back tomorrow, 9 a.m. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you watching Now Media. Like, share, subscribe, all those things. Ding the bell, whatever it is that you need to do. But thank you, and we'll be back tomorrow. Cheers.
We don't just report the news. We live here, too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.